I am Shahira Kadir, and for many years, I believed Islam was the ultimate truth. It was my foundation, my identity, my entire existence. That was until one verse completely changed my perspective. I was raised to accept without doubt. Islam was perfect. The Quran was the ultimate truth. One day I came across a verse that shook me to my core. It wasn't an external critique. It was within the very book I had always trusted. What was it about this verse? Why did it compel me to question everything I believed? What happened next changed my life forever. If you're grappling with doubts or have ever felt something was amiss, I want to share my journey with you. But before we continue, please subscribe so you never miss any of my crucial videos. Comment "I subscribe" below and I'll personally welcome you to our community. Let's begin. I was born into a deeply devout Muslim family where faith wasn't just a belief. It was our entire existence. From the moment I learned to speak, I was taught to recite Quranic verses. My parents made sure I understood that Islam was the supreme truth, the sole route to God, and that questioning it was never an option. Every day, I prayed 5 times, bowing in complete submission. I fasted during Ramadan, memorized surahs, and wore my hijab with pride, convinced it was my duty as a Muslim woman. In our home, everything centered around Islam. We celebrated Eid with joy, steered clear of anything deemed haram, and followed every rule to the letter. I found comfort in the routine, the certainty, and the sense of belonging that came with being part of a greater ummah. I never once thought to challenge what I was taught. Islam was infallible, beyond question, and I was certain I possessed the truth while everyone else was astray. I remember looking upon Christians, Hindus, and atheists with sorrow, believing they were misguided for rejecting Islam's truth. Whenever doubts tried to creep in, I silenced them with more prayers and Quran recitations. Deep down, I truly believed Islam held every answer. At least, that was my conviction, until everything shifted. It happened on an ordinary day, one I never expected would alter my life's course. I was in my room, leafing through the Quran as I had countless times before. But this time my eyes landed on a verse I'd either never really noticed or never truly contemplated. There was something different about it, as if it was demanding my full attention. The verse, from Surah An-Nisa 4:34, mentioned that men are protectors of women, and in certain cases even permitted a husband to strike his wife. I read it over and over. My heart began to race. Strike them. Those words stunned me. I had always believed Islam to be a religion of peace, upholding justice, especially for women. Yet here it was, allowing a husband to hit his wife. I tried to calm myself, wondering if I was misinterpreting it, or if the translation was off. Perhaps there was a deeper meaning that scholars understood, but I didn't. I hurriedly searched for different interpretations, hoping to find an explanation that would soothe my troubled mind. But regardless of the source, the message remained unchanged. Some scholars softened the language, suggesting it meant only a light tap, while others defended it as a necessary measure for discipline. Still, deep inside I felt something was gravely wrong. I longed to dismiss what I'd read, to push it aside like other challenging questions, yet this time I couldn't. The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I became. If Islam truly honored women, why would it allow even a slight act of violence? How could a just, merciful God sanction this? And if I'd ignored this verse for so long, what else had I overlooked? That was the moment the first crack formed in the foundation of my faith. Once that crack appeared, it only widened. I couldn't keep my doubts to myself. The weight was too heavy, and I needed answers. So I did what I'd always been taught. I reached out to those deemed more knowledgeable. I first approached my mother, carefully choosing my words so as not to sound doubtful. "Mama, I read something in the Quran today about husbands disciplining their wives. What does it really mean?" She barely looked up from her task. "It means exactly what it says. A husband has authority over his wife. If she disrespects him, he has the right to correct her." Her casual reply sent shivers down my spine. I pressed on. "But why would Allah allow a man to hit his wife? Doesn't that conflict with justice?" Finally, she looked up and said, "Shahira, you lack understanding. You're too young to question these matters. Allah's wisdom is beyond us. We must simply obey." That answer wasn't enough. I needed more than blind compliance. So I sought out an imam after Friday prayers, hoping he'd provide a deeper insight. "Sheikh, I read Surah An-Nisa 4:34, and I don't understand why it permits a man to strike his wife." He smiled patiently and replied, "Sister, don't let Western ideas confuse you. Islam grants women rights like no other faith. This verse isn't about abuse, it's about discipline. And even then, it's a last resort, meant to be symbolic rather than harmful. Trust in Allah's wisdom. I nodded politely, but inside I remained uneasy. If it was truly about discipline, why involve any physical force? How could a loving God endorse even a symbolic act of violence? No matter how much I longed to be reassured, his answer just didn't settle my heart. I continued to ask, hoping someone might give me the reassurance I craved. But every response was the same. You don't fully understand. Trust in Allah and don't question too much. They told me I was thinking too much like a Westerner. Islam is perfect, and my doubts were nothing more than the whispers of shaitan. Yet deep inside, I knew it wasn't shaitan. It was my own conscience, the truth trying to break through. And the more I searched for answers, the more I realized that something was deeply amiss. That troubling verse was only the beginning. My mind overflowed with questions I'd never dared to ask before. If that verse could unsettle me so completely, what other parts of the Quran had I ignored? Who truly authored the Quran? Was it the unaltered word of God, or a product shaped by human hands? The deeper I delved, the more contradictions I uncovered. Islam teaches that the Quran is perfect, unchanged, and the final revelation from God. But if that were true, why do multiple interpretations and even contradictions exist? Why do some verses preach peace, while others seem to sanction violence? How does Islam claim to honor women while permitting their subjugation? And then there was the question I never imagined I'd ask. Why is Jesus treated so differently in Islam than in Christianity? Growing up, I was told that Jesus was merely a prophet, nothing more. Yet as I read on, I realized that Jesus was portrayed as unique. No other prophet was born of a virgin. No other prophet was called the Word of God. No other prophet performed miracles like Jesus did. And yet Islam reduced him to just another messenger. Why? I couldn't stop researching. I began reading Christian texts and comparing them to the Quran. I listened to the testimonies of former Muslims who had embarked on this journey before me. These were individuals who had once believed as I did, but who had discovered something greater. I listened to Christian apologists explain the historical accuracy of the Bible and present compelling evidence for Jesus' divinity. The more I learned, the more the very foundation of Islam began to crumble beneath me. What if I had been wrong all along? What if the truth I clung to wasn't the truth at all? I reached a breaking point. The weight of my doubts, questions, and fears became unbearable. If Islam wasn't the truth, then what was? Was there even a God? The thought of abandoning everything I'd ever known was terrifying. My family, my community, my entire identity was wrapped up in Islam. To leave it would mean losing everything. Yet deep inside, something stirred. For the first time, I allowed myself to truly seek the truth. Not just to defend what I'd been taught, but to open my heart to whatever truth might be. I whispered a desperate prayer, unsure who might answer. God, if you exist, reveal the truth to me. Then something happened that I'll never forget. One night I had a dream so vivid and real that I awoke trembling. In the dream, I wandered in complete darkness, unable to find my way. Fear gripped me as I felt utterly alone. Then, in the distance, I saw a figure bathed in a light so brilliant and pure, it cut through the darkness. As he approached, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace, love, and safety. I tried to make out his face, but the light was too intense. Still, deep in my spirit, I knew who he was. It was Jesus. Without uttering a word, he communicated directly into my soul. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I woke up gasping, my heart racing as those words echoed in my mind. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I had heard them before, spoken by Christians in the Bible, but why would I be hearing them now? Why would Jesus reach out to me, a Muslim woman, at my moment of deepest doubt? That was the turning point. I could no longer ignore what was happening. Jesus was calling me, and for the first time, I was ready to listen. From that night on, I couldn't disregard what had occurred. Jesus had reached out to me in a way I never expected amid my confusion. Yet I still had so many questions. Who exactly was Jesus? Was he simply a prophet as Islam claimed, or was he so much more? I began reading the Bible, not to debate it, but to understand it deeply. What I discovered left me speechless. Jesus wasn't just another rule-bringer. He embodied love itself. He healed the sick, forgave sinners, and embraced the outcasts. He never demanded blind obedience. Instead, he invited people to come to him in faith. Rather than commanding husbands to strike their wives, he urged them to love their wives as Christ loved the church, with selfless, sacrificial love. Instead of advocating violence, he taught his followers to love their enemies and pray for those who harmed them. With every page, my heart grew softer. For years, I had feared a distant God, ever watchful, ready to judge and punish. But Jesus showed me a God of love, a Father not waiting to condemn me, but to rescue me. A God who didn't require endless rituals or the pursuit of perfection, but simply asked me to trust in His grace. For the first time, I felt a peace that Islam had never given me. No more fear of not being good enough. No more pressure to earn God's favor through flawless performance. Jesus had already made the ultimate sacrifice, paving the way for me. And in Him, I finally found freedom. Yet as the truth of Jesus filled my heart, a new fear emerged. What would happen if I left Islam? I knew too well the cost of such a decision. Leaving Islam wasn't merely a change in belief. It meant risking everything. My family, my community, even my own safety. I had seen what befell others who took this path. Some were ostracized, others threatened, and a few even lost their lives. I thought of my parents, the crushing disappointment and heartbreak they would endure. Would they disown me? Would they ever speak to me again? The thought was unbearable. For weeks I wrestled with this fear. I prayed, I wept, I begged for guidance. And every time doubt crept in, I heard that echo. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I couldn't unsee what I had seen, couldn't unhear what my heart now knew. Then it hit me. I had lived in fear all my life. Afraid to question, afraid to fail, afraid of not being enough for God. But Jesus brought no fear. He offered freedom. And so, I made my decision. No matter the cost, I would follow Him. When I finally told my family, it was far more painful than I'd imagined. My mother wept uncontrollably. My father's face hardened with anger, and my siblings refused to speak to me. I was called a disgrace, a traitor, a fool seduced by Western influence. Some relatives completely cut me off. The pain was excruciating, yet amid that agony I felt something divine. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't alone. The truth had set me free, and even though I lost so much, I gained something far greater. I found the one who would never abandon me, the one who loved me before I even knew Him. No matter what happens, I know that following Jesus is worth every sacrifice. If you're watching this and questioning everything you once believed, know you are not alone. I understand how terrifying it is to doubt what you've always known. But let me share something that transformed my life. Truth isn't afraid of scrutiny. If something is real, it welcomes questions rather than demanding blind obedience. It invites you to seek, to inquire, to knock. And Jesus promised that those who seek will find. I never imagined I'd leave Islam. I never thought I'd find myself here sharing my testimony. But when I earnestly asked God for truth, He led me to Jesus, the only one who could fill the void in my soul, the only one who could give me the peace I'd been searching for all my life. If you're searching too, I encourage you to keep going. Dive into Bible study, ask the hard questions, and above all, pray. Ask God to reveal the truth, and I promise He will. One verse made me question everything, but ultimately it guided me to Jesus. If this video resonates with you, please subscribe to the channel so you never miss another essential testimony. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and comment "I subscribe" below so I can personally welcome you to our community. Remember, you are not alone. Keep seeking the truth, for it will set you free.